Thank you so much for joining me today on Just Praise Him Radio. I'm your host, Glenda Lomax, and my job is to inspire you to a closer walk with Christ. Now here's the show. Hello, believers. Welcome to the Just Praise Him radio program. I'm your host, Glenda Lomax, and I'm here today with my very good friend, Manyrounds, and we are going to, in light of something the Lord said to us recently through one of the words which I'm about to read, and some current events, we want to discuss where we're at in all of this. And for anyone who does not follow the wingsofprophecy.blogspot.com blog, where I post the prophetic messages, I'm going to read the word that he gave us for Friday, December 13th, 2024, called Do Not Wait. It's very short. My children, prepare your houses as you would for war is on its way to your land. Do not wait to do this, but move quickly, for in this time you can acquire what you need. In that one you will not be able to. Abide in my word, and I will guide you through this. I don't think it gets any clearer than that. What do you think? Manyrounds?
Oh, no. And it's good to chat with you, Linda.
You too. Thank you for making time to speak to me and to the listeners. I'm kind of shocked by this word and all the other stuff that's been happening. I've been extremely ill for about 3 weeks. That's why I've not been doing any podcasts where I was talking, and I've just finally gotten better.
Yeah,
us old chickens. Thank you. Us old chickens take a little longer to get better, so it took me a little longer, but thankfully, my good friend Nikki in Montana, she's so precious, and she graciously offered 2 podcasts, which she spent her own time doing, and said, "Hey, do you want to use this?" And I was like, yeah. So God provided.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad.
So tell me what you've been observing, because I know you follow the news and I think Hal's side and some other stuff, and you because you're retired military are better able to put the pieces together than somebody like me who's just a civilian.
Well, I do cover a lot of ground when I do research on a lot of this stuff, and it's war has been coming for a long time, and that's, I think, what it's got a lot of people sort of in a kind of a laid back mode. They don't really receive it in the urgency that we do necessarily. And
True.
And in my background, I mean, I was trained to kind of look at things and put the pieces together. So
good.
And what I'm seeing is a culmination of things coming together all at one point, and they come from all different aspects of the different activities here on the planet, but militarily, economically, and spiritually. And I've known the Russians and the Chinese and the North Koreans and the Iranians and their other allies have been planning an invasion on the United States for years. I mean, this didn't just start 2 years ago or 3 years ago. This has been going on for 60 years, maybe longer, since the end of World War II, really. But now the people that are going to live this out are alive right now, and like take Putin. I mean, he's 60 something. I forget exactly how old he is, but he's probably close to 70, or maybe he's a little older than that. Maybe he's 70 something.
No, I don't even know how old he is. I never even thought about it.
You know what? He's 72. I just remembered.
Oh wow.
So yeah, I was looking him up the other day, and anyway, so he's 72, and for him to be the participant in his portion of this whole scenario, it has to happen pretty soon, and what I see out there right now, everybody's been watching this drone drama going on, and it's I see there's a couple different aspects to it. You've got drones that belong to them, you got drones that belong to us, and then you have drones that belong to other entities, and then you've got orbs and all the stuff from the Nephilim. Okay, so Putin, he's not a good guy. Okay, and there's some people that are trying to paint him as a good guy, that we're the United States is the total aggressor in this whole thing, and which is partly true, but or the West rather. But I I think that behind the scenes there's a lot of sort of intercooperation going on for a bigger purpose. It has to do with the rise of the beast system. So at the bottom line is you've got the devil, okay, who's running the show, and you've got the Antichrist who's almost ready to pop on the scene, and you've got all his minions of demons and Nephilim and guys that are going to masquerade around as some sort of aliens that are going to lie to us and tell us that they were our progenitors and they seeded us here and all this stuff, and they're going to come up with a bunch of very convincing lies to get a lot of people to go along with what they say. But I see, that this whole thing has been a gigantic military op from the get-go, and Putin has been methodically, Putin and Xi Jinping, the Chinese leader, they have been methodically, blow by blow by blow, through the last 20 years, been preparing for this moment and taken over portions of the earth under their influence. And the United States is one of the big grapes they're going to pick. And we've been degraded, and we have been, by our own doing, mostly actually because of our moral decline and the fact that a lot of our leadership and a lot of our power players have become compromised by their own actions and blackmailed into doing whatever they're doing. So it's all playing into the same scenario. But the basic, thing I see is that it's all coming to a head. And these drones that are out there that the government is using to, they're trying to find something. I mean, they're I would say they're the white hats of our government. In other words, they're actually the agencies that are trying to do their job the best they can, in the interest of the American people. Yeah. And then you've got the black hats that are behind the scenes that are working for the devil and his minions, and they're doing whatever they're doing. And you never, they don't. It's such a secret deal that the bad guys are doing. They're very good at keeping a secret and what they're doing to keep it from the white hats. Okay, so the white hats are out there trying to find. It looks to me like they're trying to find nuclear weapons. It's very simple. There's been prophecy after prophecy and dream after dream, and many people have seen that there are these suitcase nuclear devices, okay, that have been planted or they've been stashed for years, possibly, and some have been probably upgraded, but they've been put in place, and there could be another rogue element also out there that has other devices on top of that, okay, that when you disturb them or you disturb where they've been stored, you disturb the radioactive elements that have been accumulating in that storage area, whatever it may be. I mean, that whole place might have been sealed up completely tight, right? Okay. But I was reading something on Stan from Prophecy Club, and he came up with this theory, and it rang a bell in my head. I was like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. And he was saying, because these guys have basically started playing with these devices to get them ready to detonate, that it's disturbed the the spaces and the air in the areas where these were stored, where these molecules of radiation are, getting loose out. They're being exposed to the outer atmosphere, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you've always had these nuclear sniffers flying around the country on a pretty constant basis for a long time. And then when they get a good peg, right, where they've got a good reading from one of those, and then they have a general area of where to start looking. It's sort of like hunting submarines, okay? And I used to do that. And so it's like you get a ping off of something, and then what you do is you tighten your pattern and you drop a lot of different sensors in that area, right? And then
Tell in on where it is, right?
In a grid, and then from that grid you can tell pretty much where that submarine, its general location, right? So then you tighten your grid down again, and you drop another bunch of sonobuoys in the water, and you start pinging, right? And then you can really nail down the exact location of where that sub is. And they're doing the same thing with these. Okay, they've got these larger aircraft that are out there flying around sniffing, right? And then you've got the smaller drones that they're using to tighten the grids, and they're tightening them and tightening them and tightening them. And they've been sighted in a lot of different locations. Well, some of these prophecies talk about over 30 of these devices, right? And some prophecies talk about 12 or 10 devices, okay?
Can I ask a question? I am not very familiar with the destruction those can do. How bad is if let's say a suitcase nuke goes off in, let's say, I don't know, Oklahoma City?
Well, it'll devastate the downtown area pretty badly. Okay. Some of the yields that were mentioned in some of these prophecies were in the 9 range, 9 kilotons. Okay. It's a relatively small weapon, really. It's about, I would say, 6/10 of the size of the Hiroshima bomb. Okay. But that was a pretty, good sized weapon, and it killed a lot of people and devastated a lot of acreage. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's true that some of the construction in Japan was pretty flimsy or thin, but some of it was stone and some of it was steel and rebar and things like that also. And some of those buildings were still there partially, And
but even if it doesn't destroy the buildings, then you have the matter of the place being radioactive for 30 plus years.
Well, it was radioactive for quite a while, but they've rebuilt all over it, and they have a memorial there for where the ground zero was.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean they've redone it all and cleaned it all up, but I imagine if you took a Geiger counter, you could probably find some trace elements of radiation here and there, but I don't think it's to any great degree where it's going to bother anybody anymore. But it's a pretty devastating weapon. Even so, a 9 kiloton is going to cause a lot of damage, and it's going to instantly kill whoever's right directly underneath it. Depending on the altitude, or these are going to be on the ground, or they may be in a building 5 stories up. I don't know. I just don't know. But if they're on the ground or in a parking structure or something like that, they're going to blast that parking structure to millions of little pieces of concrete that are just going to fly at, faster than speeding bullets everywhere in every direction. So you got basically a concrete grenade that's going to, and then you've got all the steel and all the different electrical parts for lighting and whatnot flying out, and it's just going to shred anything in its path for probably about, I don't know, a half mile to a mile or so. And I mean, it's going to be bad. It's going to be bad. And it just depends on the type of buildings that are around in the area, and where exactly these things are placed. So this is sort of just my opinion, really. I don't have any personal proof of any of this. This is all based off prophecies and lots of studying and research on a lot of different things that I've seen. Okay, so
Did
See,
Dimitri ever say anything about this? Because I know you were friends with him in California at the end of his life.
no, we never talked about this. We were
Okay.
talking generalities really because
Okay.
you know I had read his book, you know, and
Uh-huh.
I I bought the book in a Christian bookstore, and it wasn't in the prophecy section. I was trying to find a lot of information about prophecy at the time, and I wasn't really satisfied with a lot of some of the things that a lot of these guys were talking about as far as um, you know, the situation with the United States. Okay, I mean, I knew in my heart that the United States was going to be attacked from a few dreams that I'd had before that, you know,
Mhm.
and I knew that God was showing me that it was, you know, it was going to be completely devastated. Okay, so I was like, well, what, you know, what does that mean, Lord? What who's going to be doing this, you know, and why, and this and that. And so I started asking questions, and I started soaking up everything I could possibly soak up related to prophecy. And this was long before the internet, you know, and or at least that I ever was introduced to it. But well, I was getting my information from books and publications and things like that, and radio shows, you know. Sometimes I would be out in the desert, and Steve Quayle would come on, and I loved it when he came on because it was like a gold mine of information was just being downloaded in about an hour. So you had to listen, you know, and stop doing whatever the heck you were doing. And, you know, and if I was in mixed company, then it was like I just grabbed the radio and went over the next hill, you know.
Yeah.
But um, but to get back to you asked me about the weapon. Yeah, it's going to cause a lot of damage. And now some of these prophecies are related to some. I would think it seems to me that they're more modern versions of a suitcase nuke. Okay, the old days, the suitcase nukes, it was really a backpack. Okay, it was a heavy, you know, probably weighed 100 pounds, and
Oh,
it was designed for a infantryman in the army, right? Your basic 11 Bravo type infantryman.
wow.
That's what I was, and to carry this pack for 2 miles, okay, as fast as he could do it, and
Wow.
then drop it and then run, you know, set the timer and run, right? And run like, you know, the devil's on your heels because he really is. And, you know, get to a safe location and then it would go off, right? And you'd be safe or, you know, relatively safe. But so they even those weren't that big of a yield weapon, you know. They probably somewhere between 7 and 13 megas or kilotons rather. Now, you know, I mean, in comparison to yields, you've got these smaller kiloton weapons, and then you've got megaton weapons, which are like thousands of tons of TNT. You know, they're much larger weapons,
Mhm.
and that's and our military uses on some of its weapons these multiple warhead type missiles, right? Well, each warhead is equivalent to a little bit over a 1 megaton, which is a very large weapon. Okay, it would level it would level Manhattan. That would be it. It'd be done. Okay, and in any other city, just level it would be gone, just up in the air and gone. And um, but you know, other nations have much larger weapons. I think the largest weapon we ever set off was around 15 megatons. Well, the
And
Russians,
how much
they
was Hiroshima?
it was 13 kilotons.
13. Okay.
Kilotons, though.
Kilos. Okay. I don't know the difference between one and the other. I
Okay.
know I should,
Well,
but
it's like you've got a dollar and then you've got pennies. Okay. The
Mhm.
kilotons are like pennies, and the dollar is like a megaton. Okay.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So you know, $10 is a lot of megatons. It's like 10 megatons, right? And so
Yeah.
100 you know, $50 is 50 megatons, but compared to 13 cents, okay, right? So
Right.
now you get the picture of how large these weapons are, right? So it's, the largest one I think the Russians ever set off was it was a 57 megaton, and it was set off by Khrushchev back in 61 up in
Wow.
the place called Nova Zemlya. A very, it's a crescent-shaped island above Russia in the Arctic Circle. You can look it up on a map. And there's a crater there in that island, okay, that was created by this weapon.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, it's a huge crater. It's like, I don't know, 4 or 5 miles across or something like that. And it shook the earth. It literally caused the earth's atmosphere to vibrate for a couple of
Wow.
weeks afterwards. Yeah.
Wow.
I was just a little guy. I don't remember any of it, but it was a big deal, and it really upset a lot of people that they would do something like that. And he initially wanted to use 100 megaton. It was the same bomb. They
That would
reduced
make you
it.
like a new Grand Canyon in Russia.
Well, it might have cracked the earth. I don't know.
Oh, oh.
Yeah, because it was so, at 50, what they did was they brought, Khrushchev wanted it to be 100 megatons, and his scientists said, no, you don't want to do that. Please do not. You do not want to do that. You don't understand, the situation with how big that is, And so he said, oh, okay. He says, make it 50. So they tried to make it 50, but they goofed a little bit, and it was a little bigger than that when it was all said and done. It came out to 57 megatons, which is huge. It was so big. Like I said, the plane that was photographing it. You can look this up on the YouTube. You can look it up. Look up Tsar Bomba, okay? And they have footage of that actual weapon going off that they filmed back in 61 from a Bear bomber. Basically, it was a stripped Bear bomber that they carried the weapon in, right? It was underneath the fuselage, strapped to the bottom of the plane. It was so huge, that it was big. It was long, and it was probably 6 feet, wide at least, and I don't know, maybe 20 or 30 feet long. It was big. It was a big thing, but it was just the way they designed the insides that made it so large. And anyway, but Russia has like 20 megatonners, 50 megatonners. Yeah, they have some really large stuff, and their Satan missile, or the Sarmat missile, they call it, the Sarmat, is one of these types of weapons, or it's potentially one of those. Okay, it's a very large missile, and it travels very fast, and if one of those goes off, it could destroy Texas.
Oh,
The
wow.
whole state would be.
That's very large then.
It would be just totally devastated, and that would be mostly from the blast effects.
Because Texas is a big state.
It's a big state. Yeah, it would destroy Ukraine. A good portion of it.
Wow.
And it's like, only the Lord knows why these weapons are existing, but and I hope they never do use those big ones like that, but they do exist. So, and these people, they're influenced by Satan himself, so who knows what they're going to do. But anyway, to get back to what I was saying about these weapons that they have stashed, okay, and they have them stashed in different cities in our country right now, okay. I believe that's my personal belief, and I think what I think is, in order to get the beast system to rise, in the time frame they want it to be, they're going to create a situation of havoc and chaos here in the United States.
Like a false flag attack.
Yeah.
That sort of thing? Okay.
Yeah, like a false flag attack. So, you've got potential for that. Like if they set them all off at the same time, right?
Oh,
And at a very at the most opportune moment where they can get the most bang for their buck, where there's more people on the road, there's more people in schools, there's more people in the in the workplaces, in the buildings, where you can get the most damage, that you can possibly get, then and then set them off. Well, you're going to have a disaster that's going to, be much more of a disaster than Pearl Harbor was.
wow.
But but it's going to be like our Pearl Harbor moment for our era. When that happens.
That's going to be ugly. I want to ask a question because I know this is something that a lot of us civilians wonder about and don't know who to ask. Let's say that we get attacked and, they bring us to our knees and they invade the land. What do they do with the people? What do they do with us when they come to our town? What do they do?
Well, that depends. I would think that depends on what phase of the invasion it's going to be. At first, they're just going to kill everybody. There are certain people they're probably going to seize right away, and they're going to have. I mean, if it was me, I would have people here already, and I'm sure they do. Okay, they've got people in secret locations, stashed underground or stashed in, you know, compounds somewhere,
Or hiding
scattered.
in plain sight where they just
Yeah,
look like us.
right. Scattered across the United States, and some of these people may live right next door. Okay, I don't know. And one day they're just going to get the signal that it's time for them to, they've been given what they've been given,
They've been activated. Yeah.
and now they've been activated. So now they need to go and perform this certain mission, right? And they're going to have uh, a certain operations order, okay, that they're going to follow to the T. Because if they don't, they're going to get punished. So,
Okay.
and whatever that operation order is, that's what they're going to do. So there's all these cells that they're already in place. You're talking Russian cells, Chinese cells contracted out by the cartels, and all these other types of entities that they've flooded across the border in the last few years, right? I mean, everybody looks at that and goes, well, that's terrible, that all these poor people are coming across the United States. And they don't put two and two together and realize, dude, that is your invasion force right there. Because a lot of these guys are military age dudes that some of them are hardened criminals, okay? And they've been promised, all the booty that they can gather, and they've been paid besides. And they don't have any compunction whatsoever of killing Americans. So they're going to be probably, what I would do is I would take all these guys, get them across the border, house them, send them to training camps or secret locations, and get them familiar with the gear they're going to be using, which is basically going to be trucks. Okay.
Okay.
AR-15s, AK-47s, and trucks, and probably some really large knives and stuff like that. And they're going to train them, and if they're not already trained, okay, they're going to get them all ready to rock and roll, feed them well, let them work out, bring them hookers, whenever they want, and all that kind of stuff. Provide for every need that they can have, and then when the signal goes out, they activate them. These guys jump in trucks. They come out of the ground like cockroaches all over the place, and they have an assignment of a certain neighborhood or a certain county in a certain city, and then they have a grid, and they just go, block by block by block by block, okay, and they kill everybody that they're told to kill, and they take everybody that they're told to take, and they take them to different camps, and everybody has been cataloged. Everything in this country has been cataloged and accounted for, and they know where everything is. I mean, you've got airplanes flying overhead all the time that are contracted out, and they map everything, and you've got satellites, and then you've got, Chinese balloons doing it, and you've got whoever else that they can get to do this, okay, recon basically, and tidy up their last minute plans with the information they get right up to the very last minute. I mean, that's what some of these drones are probably doing, is they're keying in on certain installations and certain bases and things like that. And then they get the latest intel of the situation there. How many troops are there? How many armored vehicles are there? How many
Oh, okay.
how many aircraft are there? You know, how fortified is the front gate and the side gates and every other place around the place, you know?
Okay.
And then they devise a plan to when they hit it, and they hit it. And most people on base, okay, are unarmed. Okay,
Yeah.
you've got, which really always bugged me, you know, because you're in the United States military and you're on a military post, and Pearl Harbor. I mean, if you ever watched the movie From Here to Eternity with Burt Lancaster and Frank Sinatra?
No, not that
Well,
one, but I have watched a movie called Pearl Harbor that is excellent, a newer one.
but when they got hit, okay, all the weapons were locked up,
Oh,
right? Yeah, and you've got
that don't do
all
you no
these.
good.
No, and you've
That's
got
like
all these.
that's like carrying a gun, ain't got no bullets in it.
Yeah, you got all these Japanese Zeros coming in, strafing the barracks and strafing the chow hall, and all these guys are running to the armory to get, you know, their rifles and their machine guns. And the guy at the you know, that's sort of watching over the armory goes, "You can't get in there unless you have authorization from General something umpty squat." Well, it's like it's a little late for that, bud. We need to get in there
We're being
now.
shot at.
Yeah, but when this all comes down,
Good grief.
everybody on base, okay, is going to be looking for a weapon, and they're probably not going to have time to get to it. If they're not actually out at the range shooting their weapon, they're probably never going to see a weapon before they see a bad guy with a weapon. You know?
What do they do with the people on the bases? Because I have.
Well, they'll probably round some of them up if they can, and then torture them to find information, any information they may need, and and then, you know, take them off to some camp somewhere. But I would imagine that anybody that's of a certain MOS, which is basically your military occupational specialty, which is, you know, civilian speak, it's your job, okay?
Mm-hmm.
You're like, some people are radio men, some people are cooks, some people are trigger pullers, some people are special ops, you know, and all that kind of stuff. So you've got a whole slew of different occupations within the military, but they're going to take the ones that are the highest priorities out first, which would be your infantry guys, your spec ops guys, your communications guys, your intelligence guys, and
the guys who know how to fight them.
And the officers that are leadership, okay, they would probably round them up, you know, if they don't just put a bullet in them right away, and then that'll be that. And they'll do this in such a fashion, it's going to be so sudden and so quick. They might throw gas canisters in there and get everybody gassed, right? And that way, they're wearing gas masks already. They just come in there and storm the place, and they're going to do to us, okay, in a way, what we have been doing in other countries to them, okay?
Wow.
Because that's what we do. We go over to another country, we kick the doors in and take the people we want and kill everybody else we don't want, and then establish peace, okay? You know, in some weird fashion. But that's what the United States, you know, does. I mean, we go over to some place that we have a disagreement with, and we stomp on them, and we tell them this is how it's going to be, and if you don't like it, too bad, you know. But
I don't think we're in any shape to do any of that anymore.
Well, we're still doing it. I mean, we're doing it in Ukraine right now, but we're just using the Ukrainians to do the dirty work, and we got a lot of our troops over there on the QT that are getting killed left and right too. And they're not telling us that on the news, okay? But you've got a lot of people over there, officers, enlisted, regular army, you know, over there, and they are, in some cases, just getting slaughtered, okay?
Wow.
Yeah, and I mean, this is my opinion, okay? Let's call it my opinion, because I'm offering no proof of any of this, but I know what's going on, okay? I know that they're over there doing this, okay? And our news media is worthless because they're not telling the American people what's really going on. And our military public affairs people are in cahoots because they're not saying, look, Mrs. Jones, your son got killed by, a Oreshnik missile today with all of his comrades when he was sitting at the chow hall. They're telling he died in training, or he died in a vehicle accident, or the helicopter got blown out of the sky, or it crashed, but it wasn't necessarily war related, which is kind of not fair to the parents and the families of these kids, because there's some benefits that they would get if they knew that they got killed in combat. It's a sad, messed up thing. It just really makes me mad. But they just abuse our people. They don't tell you that when you're signing up to get in.
I'm quite sure they don't. I bet
And that's
they
one of
don't.
the things that's going to happen. Okay, as a result of this attack, and as a result of the wars that are going to start over there, and I'm talking like wars in Syria, wars in against Iran, wars involving Russia in Ukraine, and all that, and Israel, whatever they're doing, we're going to be backing them up. So, and then you've got the Taiwan situation in North Korea. And all these things are going to kick off. And guess what? We're going to find ourselves without enough people to man, the stuff we have. And the stuff we have, we're not. I mean, Putin is a shrewd dude. He's got us over there, okay, and he's got us providing a whole bunch of weapons and hardware and gear to Ukraine, okay, for 2-3 years, and we've sent everything over there, that they've asked for, basically, and then some, and leaving us here in the United States lacking in some of our crew served weapons, some of the stuff that spec ops guys were using, that they were told basically, okay, pack it up, they're shipping it, right? And they're like, what? You got to be kidding me. You can't ship this stuff, this is our stuff. And they're like, nope, you got to pack it up and ship it.
Let me ask you this. What should people be doing now in light of what we know?
Well, like that word you spoke, and the Lord spoke to you about.
Prepare your house for war. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. It's coming. Okay. So it's like, you can see it happening now. I mean, gosh, people, they open their eyes, they can see, look, this is all being geared up to basically totally devastate and subjugate the United States. That's what Putin's real goal is. It's not Ukraine. He's what he's done is he's basically shrewdly got us to use up a lot of our gear and a lot of our resources and a lot of our treasure. And then in the meantime, he's just getting his guys trained. And he's got so much gear over there stashed away, and that he's got us right where he wants us, okay? Or we have him right where he wants us, as the saying goes. But people need to just, do what you can, okay? I mean, if you've got an empty orange juice bottle, they're great for putting water in them because they got they're great. They got a good lid. You can clean them out and put water in it and throw it underneath your sink and stack them up in there.
Just save up water, because when the conveniences go, I suspect that water and hot water are going to be, pure water and hot water are going to be things that probably go any place that comes under attack. Possibly electricity.
If they want to bone up on the kind of preparations to make, have them look up like the old ways when their great grandparents went through the Depression. Okay.
Yeah, there's a few books. There's a few books out there on how to do everything like they did it back in the 1800s, but you gotta hunt for them.
Yeah, I mean, they're gonna need to have.
None of us that live in this generation know anything about doing any of that. I don't.
Yeah,
I don't know anything. I know how to sew and do a few things like that, but I don't know how to purify water. I definitely am not a hunter. I've almost been a vegetarian.
Yeah.
I don't eat much meat.
Yeah. Well, they need to, think about the old ways, okay? But they, right off the bat, just I would go get a lot of canned food, a lot of water if you can, and um, I mean, you can drink water out of your water heater, okay? Even if you don't have power, you can still drink it. There's a little valve on the bottom. You just open it up and get a glass of water out of it. But hygiene is going to be important. You're going to need to have soap. You're going to what I would get is I would get a lot of medical gear, because
Yep.
when a lot of these things take place, these actions against people here in the United States, besides the suitcase nukes or whatever else, right? You're going to have a lot of people that are blinded from the blasts, of these weapons.
True.
They're going to be broken bones. There's going to be burns. There's going to be a lot of sickness from the radiation. There's going to be sickness just from bad hygiene. That people are going to be under. There's going to be a lot of people out there that are not going to have the resources anymore to, that they've taken for granted up to now, and that includes me. I mean, I dread what's coming, because I know how difficult it's going to be.
I dread it too.
You're gonna be without, okay? And the thing is, you have to set your mind to the fact that it's almost like you were taken as a POW and thrown in a prison camp. That's how life is going to be. It's going to be rough, and these people are going to mistreat us. They're going to mistreat us so badly. Okay, they're going to take everything American that we have cherished and loved all of our lives and been brought up to revere, and they are going to just literally shred that to pieces in a psyop. They're going to teach us on the 4th of July, right? The Russian national anthem, okay? And they're going to rub it in our face because of the taunting and the constant ridiculing and that we have been doing to them for the last 60, 70 years, 80 years. I mean, some of our movies that depict the Russian people or a Russian have not been complimentary to the Russians at all. And we've made fun of them, they're like, yes. And you don't think they'd see this when they watch our Western movies? And they go, who do these American people think they are? These Hollywood morons, that make these movies.
I'm sure they have all kind of preconceived notions about us. I know other countries do.
Yeah, but you know what? I have come to actually respect the Russians and love the Russians in a way, because I've studied them all my life, or a good portion of it. And I'll tell you what, they're a hardy people. And that's one reason why when they get here, and it's probably going to be in the winter time, but it's going to be the toughest for us. Well, they're going to be like,
that doesn't even bother them, probably.
No big deal, Ivan, it's going to be no problem, and they're going to come in here and they're just going to drag us out of our homes and put us in the back of a cold truck, practically naked, and wrapped around with barbed wire, and beat people to a pulp, and rape women anytime they want in front of us, in front of their husbands, and butcher their kids. I mean, the reality is the reality. This is war. War is awful. It is terrible. Our guys come back, right? They come back from Afghanistan or Iraq, and they are not the same. And there's a reason, because they have been asked to do things, and they were involved in things that they can't talk about, but they were a party to it. And some of those things were just terrible, nasty things. Okay. And they have to live with that. And some of them just can't. And that's why you have the suicide rates you do in the military. Because, I mean, I'm not saying all the guys went through that, but a lot of them did. They had to go do things to people, and I mean, they had to be almost psycho to do some of the things they had to do. I mean, it's not a natural thing to go walk up to somebody and blow holes in them and watch their blood pour out on the pavement. It's just not a natural thing that's for a kid who grew up in Wisconsin and played football, and took his girlfriend to the prom just about, 6 months ago. And now he's out there butchering people in Iraq. And it's like, it's a weird dichotomy, it's hard to deal with that. But, but that's the kind of thing that people need. They need to prepare their minds for this now, because that's the kind of reality that we are soon going to face in this country. There's not going to be enough food. There's not going to be enough water. You're going to hear jets flying over all the time, bombs going off, machine gun fire, and it's going to be nerve-wracking.
It would be, especially for someone who's never seen war.
Yeah, all of us are going to see it. There is not going to be any non-combatants in this one. We're all going to see this. My children, everybody's kids are right now in elementary school. Okay. When you look at it, they're going to, if they survive and they get home and they do link up with their parents. Okay. They're going to be scared to death probably. And they're going to need some cool heads. Those parents are going to have to really have their act together. They're going to, a lot of Christians that go to church now, and they go to Happy Time Church and they have a good time and they sing and they have all this, happy time worship and everybody's doing a good job and everybody pats each other on the back. Well, they need to wake up. They need to really smell the coffee right now, because when they have got their wife ripped out of their bedroom by these dudes dressed in black, okay, and thrown on the bed and gang raped in front of her, okay, what is that pastor going to do? He's going to have to really have his faith on at that moment, because that's the kind of brutal thing these people are going to do to us. That's what war does. I mean, and they're going to not only do it here in the United States, it's going to happen in other places too. But the payback, I mean, it's called judgment. This is judgment. This is the judgment of Babylon. Okay. And my battery's about to die.
Well, we've got less than 10 minutes to be at an hour, and I want to stop at an hour. Okay. I don't want this to be so long people can't,
But I would stock up on food and water. I mean, these are the things that are going to get you. And I got this from a friend, kind of a friend. He's a fellow neighbor, but he was special ops, okay? And he came up with four different things. He's a Viking preparedness. Okay, so he's a pastor also. But anyway, the starvation's the big one. Okay, that's going to be the one that takes most people out, because most people are just not equipped or prepared to have a year or 2 years worth of food in your pantry. Unless you have to be self-sufficient. You have to start growing a garden. You have to start thinking about, if you can, get out of the city. Get out.
Another thing is, if you've got a stockpile of food and you tell everybody in the neighborhood you've got it, somebody on a bad day is going to come get some of that.
Eventually they will. So
you got to be able to protect and defend whatever you have.
So what I was going to say.
Of course, we want to share with people in need, but there's some people that just won't prepare, and they're just expecting to come take other people's food. And the mind does funny things when it starts to starve. There's a kind of madness that sets in, they say, at the end. And if that one vision that I had years ago in 2008 is any indication, it definitely is. You go into madness. I had it written down, and I don't know where I put it now, but I wrote down the stages of starvation because I finally came across them. I never could find them. Where your body will draw energy stores from first. I think it said it takes from the liver first, and then the muscle, I think, next, and then your internal organs. So basically, your body will eat itself. And the brain is an organ, so. Uh-oh, I think his phone may have gone dead. I think he had some other things he wanted to talk about, so maybe he'll record those for us and we can talk about them on the next podcast. My Great thanks to Manyrounds for taking the time to speak to all of us about this, because most of us here in my country, anyway, in America, know nothing about the realities of war. We know that people die. We don't really know anything else. Because we really haven't had war on our own soil since, I think, the Civil War. And we were not around then. So anyway, I hope that y'all enjoyed the podcast. I'll put a link in the description to Manyrounds' YouTube channel, which if you just want to search for it, you can put Manyrounds Fellowship of the Fortified Tower is the name of his channel on YouTube. And he posts a lot of good videos about getting ready for what's coming. So Jesus bless you. Thanks for listening. Y'all have a great week. Thank you so much for tuning in today to Just Praise Him Radio, sponsored by the friends and supporters of JPH. You can contact me by mail at my new address, Glenda Lomax, JPH Inc., P.O. Box 854, Altus, that's Altus, Oklahoma 73522, or by email at jphtoday@gmail.com. Don't forget to visit the website for prophetic updates at wingsofprophecy.blogspot.com. JPH is not affiliated with any nonprofit organization, church, or denomination. Have you ever gone through a time in your life where all of a sudden it just felt like your whole life was falling apart? I call these experiences the wilderness experiences. Wilderness experiences are times of great uncertainty and change. They are times when our faith is tried and refined. After many of these wilderness experiences in my own life, the Lord spoke to me to write The Wilderness Companion, which is a virtual roadmap through the desert times of your life. Find out why you've been led into the wilderness. Find out what the biggest hindrance is to receiving your provision in the wilderness. Find out what the 7 temptations of the wilderness are. Drastically cut the time you spend in the wilderness by learning how to partner with the Lord instead of working against Him. Every Christian needs to read The Wilderness Companion. The Wilderness Companion by Glenda Lomax is available on Amazon.com or wingsofprophecy.com in print, Kindle, and new audiobook versions. The Wilderness Companion. Don't go into the desert without it.